is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Rundown with Silva. My name is Tyler Silva, and today my guest is the man that molded me, the man I owe life to, the original seed, my man, my grandfather, Bradley Willson, everybody.
Hey, thank you. Honored to be here, man.
What's up, Gramps?
Well, you know, you're in trouble because I've known you since the day you were born.
That's true.
I was there in Monterey Hospital that fateful day, and all the way up to the last almost 30 years.
Were you scared when you heard my mom was pregnant with me?
No, not at all, no.
Did you expect to have grandchildren like when my mom was that age or when your kids were that age?
No, it's earlier than I expected, for sure. But
Yeah.
I'm glad it happened because I was young enough where you and I could do stuff. I mean, I remember we playing golf together when you were 10 years old, and we were playing music together when you were 12, 13, 14 years old and up. And so we have this really great history together that I'm really grateful for. It's been awesome.
Well, all the things that I've ever done with you, I've really just ran with, even this, because you did radio for a while.
I did radio for 16 years.
That's
daily.
What was that like? What was your show?
It was called Daybreak, and it was sort of a spiritual morning show. And it was only a half hour, but it was on every day, Monday through Friday. And I'd have guests, and I'd talk about spirituality, things like that. I mean, that's kind of where I've gone all my life. I mean, all my life, and maybe you feel this way too, I'll bet you do, but going back almost as far as I can remember, I've had this feeling that there's something more than we see. There's something beyond this. And especially when you look at the culture and you realize that millions and millions of people in the West, in America, in the West, and Western Europe, spend all their most productive lives, mostly, not everybody, but mostly in jobs they don't like. So they can earn money to make payments on stuff that they bought on debt. Mortgages, cars, credit card, furniture, and then they have to keep working to make those payments. And it's sort of hypnotic.
Yeah.
All the thousands and thousands and thousands of people live that way, and they don't realize that there's any other choice. I mean, they're hypnotized by having the latest, and of course the culture yells it at them all the time, having the latest car, the latest this, the latest that, going to the latest.
A lot of things.
Oh, gosh, things and experiences and, that don't end up being very deep at the back end. They don't do it. And one thing I've discovered, and you didn't ask me this, but I've got onto it now, so I'm going to say it, is that I'm talking about my own quest, and I see it in you too, and I'll expand on that in a second, but I came to realize that this quest for something more is what motivates and energizes artists of all kinds.
Do you think when you talk about the more, right? The quest for more, is that more wisdom? Is that more knowledge? Is that more life experience? What does the more look like to you?
It's not wisdom. It's not really knowledge. It's not even life experience. It's more of what is reality and who am I really? I mean, that's the biggest question. People, you ask somebody, who are you? What do they tell you? Oh, well, I'm an accountant. Or, I'm a grandfather, or my name is Bob, or, this or that. But that isn't who they are. That's who they are in the culture. That's who they're known by. But who am I really without this? And artists, in my view, have found a way to somehow begin to work through that question through art, whether it's music, visual art, even writing, dancing, whatever. And it's amazing when you look at the most out there artists. I'm talking about the Van Goghs in painting and the Beethovens and Miles Davis. And most of those guys would be looked upon and seen as bums. They live like bums. They look weird. They don't enjoy what everybody else enjoys. They're outliers. But that's because they see that what everybody else is enjoying doesn't work. It's not worth it.
Do you think that's just a lot of self-discovery, or
it is. It's awareness.
Awareness.
If we were talking to a Zen master would say you can't explain it. You can't put it into words. But somewhere along the line, it happens. Suddenly you realize. Mm-hmm. And I spent years, I went to college, studied philosophy, psychology, got into music finally, and at least that was something that wasn't so cultural. It wasn't so much like, I got to look like everybody and have what everybody else has. And then I spent years in the church thinking I could find it there. Didn't find it there. The church doesn't know anything about it either. The church is just another PTA, and with what they call God at the head, but God isn't really at the head, in my opinion, of the Western church. And then it's only as I've gotten older that all that lifelong search has gotten more and more and more focused, where I don't have the values that I had when I was 40 or 30 anymore. And I know even my own kids don't understand it. They're afraid I'm crazy or that your granny's crazy, but we're not. We're just enjoying not performing for people.
That's fucking awesome.
It's wonderful. And I'm saying all that to say that's what I see in you. You have that in you. You can't, Tyler, you can't be defined properly. Really. I mean, what's with Tyler? What's he doing? Hey, and my answer is, he's doing great. And, you know, he struggles like we all do. I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with fears and problems. We all have that. But the outliers, in my view, have a way out in their art. I can always do my music. I can always, for me now, it's writing. I just write. I'm working on a book. And it's the same kind of thing. It's the way to not be trapped in a culture that is about an inch deep and 1,000,000 miles wide. That's this culture. It's just this huge inch-deep lake called Western culture, but it's an inch deep. It looks really deep, but it's not.
This is like, so everything that you're saying, it must have taken, to come to this realization, right? There has to be so much trial and error and trying things, right? And one of the things that you said was like the Western church.
Yeah.
What was that? Especially like, because that was a big part of our lives forever.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And, you know, it was an experience, and
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Did I believe everything I heard? No, now that I'm older, you know. It almost seemed like, what I believe is that it seemed like the Western church used religion to control large groups of people.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a fact. That's a fact. You keep them in their seats, keep the offering plates full of money.
Yeah.
You know, and what happened to me in the church is that the last 10 years
Can you tell us a little bit about like your history with the church?
Well,
I mean, like where it started.
yeah, it started in college. Your granny and I had just gotten married. This is 1970. We were married in 69. So think back. We got married the year that Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. That's the year we got married.
Oh, wow.
That's how long ago that is, man. And still are, and still happy and loving each other. But I met her in college, San Jose State. We were both students there. And through some, I'll make it short, but through some connections we had with people, we were encouraged to go to this little meeting in a basement near the campus. And there was this guy that just gotten out of prison for armed robbery, and he had had a spiritual experience. And he shared that spiritual experience that night, and it affected both of us very powerfully because we were both searching. Mm-hmm. And at that point, we were searching through drugs. And there's nothing wrong with drugs. Yeah. It's just that we were searching for that thing we're talking about.
What drugs were you doing?
We didn't know no hard drugs, no heroin, not even any
like cocaine or anything like that?
No cocaine. Yeah. Pot, mescaline, and LSD.
What's mescaline?
Mescaline is another plant like hash. It's a hallucinogen.
It's a hallucinogen?
A hallucinogen, yeah.
You ever heard of that, Justin?
Mescaline.
I have not, but good thing we have Google.
Yeah.
I hear him clicking away in there. So.
Yeah, mescaline, mescaline, mescaline. Anyways, so I was selling pot. That's how we were living. I was selling pot and selling acid, and I was stoned every day, trying that way to find this more that I couldn't find. And that didn't give it to me either. I mean, it was fun. It was great experiences, but experience is not what gives it to you.
It almost looks like
It's peyote.
it's peyote.
Peyote, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
peyote.
It's
Gotcha.
it's synthetic peyote.
Synthetic peyote.
I think so. Right, Justin?
It says that it's obtained through the spines that you get from the plant.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
So
Yeah.
it's little.
I didn't take much of it. We were fine with grass and LSD. We had a lot of LSD. I took LSD daily for about a year.
Did you ever mess around with mushrooms?
No.
Mushrooms. I experimented with mushrooms earlier, like last year or something, during the pandemic sometime.
The problem with LSD, pot, you always got to come down.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And then sometimes you can't come down and you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, I was working every day at a bookstore in Hollywood, and we'd drop acid, and at 6 a.m, I'm still up, and I'm down enough to know I'm still up, and how do I get down? I got to go to work. I mean, it was awful sometimes.
Ooh.
But it didn't, because it didn't last, it wasn't real either.
So you were doing like a lot of spiritual searching, or you're trying to find things
Yeah.
through hallucinogenics, and,
that's right.
and drugs,
Yep.
and then you go to this meeting, you meet this guy who comes out of prison,
Right.
and feel very touched by what he's saying in his story,
Right.
And then where does it go from here?
So then, about maybe a month later, and Susan and I were very affected by this meeting. We didn't know what it meant. We didn't know what to do with it, but we knew it was something that had substance, spiritual substance. Well, this old girlfriend of mine, who I almost married before I met Susan, she's a great girl, and she was Susan's friend and mine, so she came to visit us. And she took us to this church in San Jose. And I want to say two things. I don't regret any of it, but it took me down a path for the next 35 years that I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been taken down that path. But I don't regret it, because
Right.
I'm here today much more fulfilled and happy. I'm satisfied and content, not quite where I want to be spiritually, but on the right road. And so we got lost in church life, to where I became a church leader and planted 2 churches, one in Salinas, California, and one here in Phoenix. And then about the last 5 to 10 years, the time I was in Phoenix, I started to realize this is not it either. We don't do what we say we believe.
That's interesting.
I mean, we say, help the poor and save the lost. What we mostly did was count money and count attendance.
Yeah.
And figure out how we can build a better building and make our brand more impressive and keep up with the bigger churches in town. It just got to be, God, this is crap. And so I began to be a little bit of an outlier in the church. I began to just be who I was. And it wasn't like I was trying to tear it down, but I was saying, this whole thing with a leader like me being paid and all that, I'm going to give away my income, my salary, going to get other people involved, make this more of a community than a top-down hierarchy. And the church freaked out. They said, oh, no, too scary, way too scary. So we had a mutually agreeable departure, and that was back in 2010. And it was wonderful, because the last 11 years have been the greatest years of our life without the church. We finally got to explore on our own without being professionals and having that role to do it.
You were really good at what you did too. You're an amazing public speaker.
Well, maybe not. That's nice for you to say. But that's what I feel like. Here, let me just say this. You're good at what you do. You have
Sometimes.
the way you interview people, ask them questions, interested. I can tell by hearing what they're saying. They're going, wow, somebody's interested in me. They're asking questions. He wants to know how I got here, where my band was like. And it's a great gift.
Thanks,
and
Gramps.
you found this way.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because we, me and Austin really put this together out of fear. Because when we
Fear of what?
Well, the pandemic hit, so we weren't playing shows.
Oh, yeah.
We had no idea when we were going to go to another show, when we were going to see another show, when we were going to hang out with the bands again, because it was, it's not just going to play music. It really is so much more than that.
Yeah.
With how long we've been in it, you know?
Yeah.
Justin can even attest to it too, but the more shows that we've played, the more friends that we made and connections we've made, and,
Right.
Shaking hands, smiling away. I don't want to say like the church, because like it's very satisfying at the end of the day. Like I don't feel like I did anything wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I
like,
get it.
I feel like it, having these people in my life are helping me with my, spiritual, looking for myself spiritually.
Well, you find that you can be free of rules. And I don't mean like you go out and kill people because you're free of rules, but there's nobody telling you, here's what you should be believing. Here's what you should do and what you should not do. That's the fear. That's what drives people to the church. They want somebody to tell them, how do I get happy? I'm not happy. How do I not be afraid of death? I'm afraid of death. And so they go to the church to get those answers, and the church gives it to them, even though the guy giving it to him doesn't have a clue what the answers are either. But he has a message to give. I mean, pastors, listen, I used to oversee pastors. I oversaw all the pastors in the vineyard from San Francisco to Santa Barbara. That's when I was flying a plane to go around and meet them all. Those guys were the most miserable, unhappy, frightened, confused guys because now they got to perform for an audience and they've got to tell people what's right and wrong, and they can't let anybody know that they're masturbating in secret or looking at the choir girl the wrong way or even having I mean, all the secrets and stuff that happens in churches because it's this rule-based hierarchy, top-down, rule-based, obedience-based, and it hypnotizes, and millions of people hypnotized by it, but it's not the real thing. It's just not the real thing.
What do you think of when you like Joel Osteen, right?
Yeah.
What a crazy arena he has and whatnot.
Right.
Like, would you say that that's the goal of like a lot of small churches?
Yeah, but see, Joel Osteen is willing to say something that fundamentalist small churches aren't willing to say. And what he's willing to say is, you're okay, just the way you are. And God loves you and is for you. The small churches, the fundamentalist guys, they don't want to say that. They want to say you're not okay. You're a sinner. And you need to be saved, and you need to keep coming to church, and you need to do what I tell you because you're a sinner, and you need to feel guilty. That's the church's message. It's not good news. And then when somebody like Joel Osteen comes along and says, "Hey, you are okay. Enjoy. Let me give you some teaching and tips on how to feel better about yourself." Then the little churches say, "That's not the real gospel. It's fake. It's phony." But you know what? It's not. It's just a different message that's a little more liberating. Now, I'm not a Joel Osteen fan.
Yeah.
But I know why there's 19,000 people in a Sunday service at the old Houston Rockets Arena in Houston.
You think it's like a feel good high? Like just go there, feel good?
Somebody's telling him you're okay. I mean, it's amazing to be, to just have somebody say, "Tyler, you know what? You don't need anything else. You're just okay as you are. Be free and go do your thing because you're fine." I mean, to have that message instead of the message, you need to stop doing grass and stop doing this and that and stop being sexual and come to church and you know what I mean? That's not good news. That's horrible news. I'm not okay.
Very true.
I'm not
That's
okay.
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible news. And so I began to say to people, "You're okay, and you don't need me. You don't even need me," I said to my church. And they absolutely freaked out. I mean, I had women bawling coming to the front of the church after the service. "Are you going to be my pastor or not?" And all I was saying is, I'm not going to rule your life anymore. But people are hypnotized. They want somebody to tell them what to do and what not to do. And that's the American church. I hate to be so general, with exceptions, of course.
I think people need to hear it, though, and anyone can stand where they stand, but it's true, and especially when you say, like, something about liberating yourself, right? Like, I don't blame anyone for wanting to believe that there's something out there, like a bigger picture or anything like that, but I don't think the bigger picture involves this pyramid of people.
No, that's right.
That's what strikes me.
Well, the bigger picture is inside you.
Yes.
The bigger picture is within you. That's what happens. You really become the person. This is what I've always said about myself. Maybe this will relate. I've always wanted to be a person that didn't need people to like him. Didn't need people to approve of what he said. Didn't have to perform for anybody. Just be me. And if you don't like it, that's the way it goes. Go your way. It's okay with me. Come or go. There aren't very many people like that. Certainly not in the church. Pastors, unfortunately, and I've known hundreds of them. I'm not talking out of turn here. I was one for 35 years.
Yeah.
Pastors in general are saying, "Please like me." It's a codependent relationship. I'll tell you how you can get well and go to heaven, and you pay me and like me and appreciate what I'm telling you. And they make that pact together. The problem is that the message the pastor's saying isn't true.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just giving them a line. And that's why Christians are some of the most frightened people on earth. They're as afraid of death as anybody. I mean, Christians are frightened. They're terrified by getting old, by having pains, by maybe getting disease, and pal, you're going to be healed, you're fine, and just want somebody, but the church's message It doesn't help.
Did you ever see, this is something I've noticed, I guess, within, I don't know, the last decade or so, but just started seeing like the church nearly like adapt to the times, right? So
Yeah.
I remember like, being gay was a sin. And
Yeah.
now there are like churches for gays and things like
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
Like, did you ever see any of that? Like,
Oh, yeah.
What?
Well, in my day, and again, I left it in 2010, so I'm
Yeah.
talking about from 1980 to 2010, basically that 40-year period or so. To admit you're gay was to admit you're a sinner, and you automatically needed recovery and counseling and need to be basically talked out of your gayness and sort of guilted out of your gayness and shamed out of it and realize it's a sin and it's not right. And the question is, who in the hell has the right to tell anybody that?
Yeah.
I mean, pastors assume that right, and then they get a crowd of people together that agree with them. Yeah, that's right. We don't want any gays in our church. And then you ask, well, what? Where's Jesus in this? It's not Jesus anymore at all. It's just a group of people that have decided they have a sort of standard of things they want to do, and if you're not part of it, then go away. That's not what Jesus meant when he said, I'll build my church.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's
Like,
crazy. Yeah.
So to kind of piggyback off of that with like what Jesus built the church for, the Bible that we have nowadays has been through so many different translations that nobody really knows what.
Who's talking?
That's Justin. He's in the back control room.
I'm looking up. Did God show up? What's going on?
No, if Justin is God, we have a real problem.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're all fine.
Okay, go ahead, God.
But with this whole translation of like we don't know what the true translation of what the original Bible was saying because there's been so much influence of like King James version and this and that. Do you think that it's wrong for people to push these ideas that we have now into church?
You mean just are you saying that there maybe are different ideas from translations and we're just continuing to push different narratives all the time?
Yes.
Well, that's true. And don't forget, Justin and everybody who's listening, that we don't have a single scrap, not one verse of the original New Testament. We don't have one. There's no originals. The earliest ones we have are a couple hundred years after Christ. And those are already translations by then. And then they got translated more and translated more and translated more. And you're absolutely right. It's impossible. I mean, it's almost like it's an arbitrary choice. You just pick what you think is the one you like, whether it's King James or New American Standard or the Living Bible. And there's these different schools, the hardcore fundamentalists that call them the fighting fundies. King James, and it's directly from God, and they hold up a Bible and say, this is God's word. And think about that. The next time somebody holds up a Bible and says, this is God's word, you mean you're saying that book is God? It's God's voice, that book, all these translations, that paper and ink? And the fact is, yeah, that's what they're saying. And if you question that, you're a heretic. And it's because you can't question it. It's because everybody's afraid. I don't know if I want to find out who I really am.
Wow.
Who would I really be if I wasn't known as a Christian? Who would I be if I just searched for who? I mean, that's the biggest question in life, really. And it's the most difficult to answer, to just look in the mirror and say, who am I? Am I what I'm facing in the mirror? Is that me? It's a lot more than that.
So you leave the church in 2010.
Yeah.
And then you continue.
Then the fun really began.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because
Go for it.
Well, then because there's certain churches in the fundamentalist evangelical circles that you can't go to. You go to a Unity church or a religious science church, it's like going into an adult bookstore. You're just not allowed to go in there. Don't let anybody see me, because you're in this heretic church with the heretics. So, in my opinion, the only church this isn't to get anybody to do this, I'm just being honest. The only church that I actually enjoy going to, and I don't go very much because it's in Phoenix, is the Unity Church of Phoenix over on Greenway and 16th Street.
Why is that?
Why?
Yeah.
Because the guy who teaches doesn't teach doctrine, doesn't teach money, doesn't teach here's what you should believe. He does what Joel Osteen does in a slightly more spiritual way, but it's the same message. Like he starts every message out by saying, We don't believe in original sin here. We believe in original blessing. We're all blessed. He's just, you walk out of that place and he's funny. He tells great jokes, and he's got a real solid message. And he's had a spinal cord injury, so he walks on crutches with braces.
Oh, wow.
But he's just a really good guy and fun to listen to. And so we go there, and I never leave there without feeling good ever, about myself. But even that, don't need it.
Yeah.
Because feel good is inside.
Right.
Okay. Now, the Hindus and Buddhists have an old saying that a good guru, a good teacher, points at the moon to show you where the moon is. But don't get hung up looking at his finger. You don't look at him. Look at what he's pointing at. And what pastors end up doing in our church, in our culture, is saying, "Look at me. Oh, we love you, Pastor. Oh, it was a great message, Pastor." No, you're looking at the finger. You're not looking at the moon. And that's what a good teacher does. He makes it feel like I don't need him, but it sure is fun to listen.
Yeah.
That's a good teacher.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's a just really good perspective on. I love the way that you put things into perspective too. You've always been really good at putting things into perspective for people, just very easy to understand. And I don't want to say like it's like black and white, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you kind of do make bigger issues look black and white, just like you were saying. Like this is God's word. Like, well, you're saying that book is God, Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And here's the problem: to really talk about, quote, reality, or to even talk about what you hope to find, you can't talk about it because words aren't it.
Do you think religion is like taking a decline at least here in America? I just notice a lot less of my friends, or go to church anymore or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it could be like my friend group, or it could be that maybe people are waking up to some of these.
I think they might be. I think people get to a place where they realize, I don't really want to go to church Sunday, but I think I should. Mm-hmm. And when you get over that one, who says you should?
Yeah.
Where's that voice come from? You know what I'm saying? And then we take on the outer voice and make it the inner voice. My conscience says I should. Well, your conscience needs to take a rest. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, I don't know. It's again, you can't talk about it. Like the Taoists.
The Taoist?
Like the Tao, Tao. It's an Eastern religion. I'm not a Taoist, I'm not a Buddhist, but I've read all these guys.
Yeah.
And the Taoists say you can't talk about it. If you think you know the Tao, you don't. And if you know you don't know the Tao, you do. Because you can't put into words what is multifaceted. It's like, for instance, have you ever been high on LSD or a strong hallucinogen?
Yeah, I've done mushrooms and I've done acid once.
Okay, so we're going to sit down and you're going to give us a description of what you experienced.
Oh, man.
You can't do it.
No.
You run out of words fast.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, oh, wow, it was really crazy. Really, that's all? Well, no. You go on and on and on and on. Ultimately, you run out of words because there are no words. And that's what scares people. People in our culture want words. Tell me how to do it. What are the steps? What should I not be doing? What should I be doing? We all want lines of print that we can go by. And reality isn't lines of print. Lines of print are just lines of print. The word tree is not a tree. It cracks me up. Cracks me up. It cracks me up when people want to name things. Like, what is that, a maple tree or an elm? And people want to name them so they get control. Okay, that's an elm tree. Now they're not looking at the tree anymore. They're looking at the word elm.
This is so gnarly. I really, I feel like the seventh gate of my mind is just opening. I really do.
That's because you're an outlier. You get it. I'm telling you, either you get it or you don't. The Zen people say there's no path, there's no learning it. You just come to a place where you wake up.
Did you start studying a lot of these religions after you left the church or reading these books? I know we've kind of drifted off, but after you left the church, you said it's some of the best
I was still reading a little bit, but when I left the church and was not going to be accused of going into an adult bookstore anymore or reading heresy, I read everything. And then I found in the writings, and again, writings are always incomplete because it's just a line of words. But as long as you take the writings as the finger pointing to the moon, and it's not the finger you're looking at, it's the moon that wants you to look at, I found people that were closer. And those are the people that said, I can't put this into words, but I'll do my best, realizing that it has to happen to you inside. And those people are fun to read. They're really fun to read because they admit going in, this isn't your salvation, what I'm writing, and you don't even need me. But if I can point at the moon and have you look at the moon, then I've done my job. I've helped you along. And that's kind of what Joel Osteen does in a sort of a little bit of a dorky way.
Yeah.
That's what the guy at Unity of Phoenix does. He presents like, hey, you're okay. So let's just talk about being okay and what okay people can do, what you're free to do because you're okay.
Do you think people like that are important?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I do. To the extent that they don't think they're important, they're very important. The minute they think they're important, they're not important anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's crazy, how that fits in, I guess, just to society, right? Like you're saying, a handful of people or, a group of people go to this Unity church and they leave feeling good. You know?
Yeah.
And I wonder how essential that is just, to us, to humans, to mankind. Like, I wonder how important that is. And maybe if we have enough of it.
How important what is?
Well, I mean, just going, like we said, right? Like, what do you think it is? I mean, you go, you feel good, you leave. So is it an experience? Is it like going to a bar?
Not exactly. When you hear somebody or read somebody and you realize they're attempting to define this thing you've been looking for all your life, and then you realize they understand your search. And they tell you that they don't have the answer to your search, but they understand your search. And the answer is there, but it's got to come to you within. You just need to wake up, and nobody can wake up for you. And so just the thought of other people that understand that is what's happy.
Yeah.
Like, I realize you can't save me, but you understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
My search. You get with people that understand the search, and then that's a real fun time. You could talk about anything then.
Did you think this, like, your search went so much farther after you left the church?
Oh, my gosh. It's the best 10 years of my life, the last 12 years, 10, 12 years. So, yeah, for Susan and me. I mean, we just had a ball. I mean, we get up every morning and read and talk, and we're not talking about what color should we paint the kitchen.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about that. We do that. But we talk about what's going on in our hearts. What's going on? What are we still afraid of? What are we confused about? What do we need to help each other point to better? That kind of thing. Oh, it's been great. It's been wonderful. I mean, it's been, especially at my age, because you get to be my age, 75, and according to the actuarial tables, I should be dead in 2 years. What's 77 or 78 for American males?
You seem like you're in pretty damn good shape.
Yeah, I'm not sick or anything. But you realize I don't even have to fear death. Yeah, and that's we're in a whole different approach. We have to do another interview about death and why you don't have to fear it. But that's part of it. And
could you touch on it? I think that's pretty important. I'm not gonna lie. Well, a lot of people are really depressed. And became really depressed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of people felt like they lost purpose, not going to work, losing their jobs.
Exactly.
Getting
there
evicted.
you go.
And I think a lot of people, thought about dying or, committing suicide or anything like that. But I think a lot of people are afraid of death.
So you picked right up on it. Wow, I can't go to work. Who am I if I can't go to work?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Me and work are the same. If I have to go, I don't know who I am. I carry mail. If I can't carry mail, who am I? And that's the terror. Who am I? Who am I is the most terrifying question in the world if you really are asking it. Who am I?
Probably the most important question.
And the most important, what was it? Plato, know thyself. I mean, it's been the most important question. Love your neighbor as yourself, Jesus said. Now the church turns that around and makes it a kind of a moral obligation. So you need to love that guy, you know.
Yeah.
But what Jesus was saying, and this touches on something else too, which is we don't have time to go into. But what Jesus was really saying is, when you see your neighbor, recognize that you're one with him, no matter who he or she is. And so if you love your neighbor, you're loving yourself. Love your neighbor because he's one with you. We're all hooked up.
Yeah.
Even though we're in little different churches and different groups, we're all hooked up. We're all hooked up together. Everybody has the same fears. Everybody has the same desires. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be unafraid. We're all the same. But the West, God, I watch TV commercials. You know, we were off the grid for 5 months up in the forest this last summer.
Yeah, in the RV, right?
We were camped. We were taking care of campgrounds. 2 campgrounds we took care of.
Okay.
We worked as campground hosts. And we were in RV, off the grid. No phone, no internet, nothing for 5 months. Just each other and reality.
Yeah.
And now I come back down, and I'm watching TV commercials, and I'm going, how competently. And I'm not saying this is like an anti-social. I'm not trying to be radical. I'm just saying it hits you that everything in retail merchandising, everything is all about this life. Nobody's ever talking about what happens when I'm at the end of my life, what happens when I'm old. No, you don't talk about it. It's too scary. Who am I really? Well, you're the person who has these granite countertops and the new stainless steel appliances in your apartment or your house, or you got the new Ford Bronco redone. You know,
Looks
I mean,
weird.
I know, it's for me. It's for my generation.
Yeah.
Because all the boomers, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They
yeah.
remember the Broncos. I mean, remember the little Chevy HHR, the one that looks like a little Woody, the little Chevy, real
Yeah,
pop.
yeah.
Yeah, it's for guys like me. We grew up driving those kinds of cars. Anyways, you just realize how shallow, how superficial it is. I mean, that isn't going to make anybody happy. That isn't going to take away their terror of getting cancer or of facing their own mortality. It's a con. It's just a con.
You think we just surround ourselves with these things to distract us from...
Absolutely.
Yeah?
From the terror of finding out who I really am. Man. Yeah, that's terrifying. Who am I? Terrifying.
Is this what you're writing your book about?
Well, I'm writing my book. It's probably one of the books. The first book I'm writing is called The Prodigal Pastor, in which I write about why I left the church and what's happened. And then another book will be like, why are we all so afraid? That kind of thing. So yeah, that's the direction I'm going.
Man.
Yeah.
So can I ask a bit of a personal question then?
Yeah,
course.
go for it, Justin.
Since leaving the church and like delving into other things and going on the spiritual journey that you've been on,
Yeah.
do you think that's altered your faith at all?
Has it altered my faith at all? Let me see. That's an interesting question. My faith in what?
Just like the belief system that you had before leaving. Like,
Oh, yeah.
in God.
Oh, definitely. I mean, in a way, I feel like I'm more Christian than the fundamentalist Christians, but in a different direction. Because I highlight things Jesus supposedly have said. We don't know what he really said. But when he said things like, I'm the firstborn among many brethren, and after I leave, I have to leave or you won't be able to function in your spiritual fullness if I stay around. And that some of those things I don't think Jesus really said, but they lead us down a path that says we got to get rid of this guy, get him upstairs where it's safe, and we can worship him upstairs and all be down here in our poor, miserable little states of existence. But yes, it's altered my faith immensely. I mean, wouldn't it have to, Justin?
I mean, I would imagine so. If you're,
Why do you ask that question? Do you have a faith that you're struggling with?
I mean, I grew up. My father went to Catholic schools. My mother was raised Christian. So there's always kind of been a bit of a battle between the belief in God, but I've never really figured out what I truly believe in.
Good.
I feel like I've always been wondering, like,
Good.
what's out there.
He who doesn't know the Tao knows the Tao. Good for you.
That's so fucking crazy.
It's when you say, I got it.
Wow.
Then you got to watch yourself. When you say, I got it, you probably don't. And the minute you say, I got it, then you next person you talk to say, have you got it? I got it. Let me tell you what it is. And then you're in real trouble.
Dude, I feel like there are so many questions running through my brain right now.
Definitely gonna need a part 2.
Yeah, we definitely have to. Next time you're around, you'll have to come back and do this again. This has been a lot of fun. We're gonna keep going for a little bit, but
Yeah, I don't mean to talk and talk and talk.
no, that's just it. That's the best guest, right? Is one that I don't have to talk that much. I don't know if you ever felt that in radio or anything.
Oh yeah.
My best guests are ones I can barely.
When
get
the
a word
guest is saying yes,
yeah. Oh man.
no, not so much.
Yeah. That's weird. When you dive into, I guess, this search, right?
Yeah.
This search. What have been some of the obstacles or things that where is your search taking you?
Well, it's taking me farther and farther adrift of what is societal norm.
I guess I should say, where has it taken you? That's
Taking me there, drifting off on my own. People that want reality, or say they do if they really mean it, will end up being alone ultimately. The greatest jazz musicians were alone. Some of them committed suicide because they were alone. The greatest artists were bums. I mean, Van Gogh cut off one of his own ears. They get crazy sometimes because they know that nobody understands them. And if you're an outlier, if you're really up on the search, nobody does understand you. They want to put you in a box. They want to, well, what are you? Are you a Christian? You're not a Christian? What are you? I can't define myself that way. I'm not either one of those. I'm just me. Just me. And that's hard for the culture. It's hard for your parents. It's hard for your friends. It's hard for the people you grew up with. It's hard for people that are not your friends now, but I mean friends that you've had. And I see that in you, Tyler. I know you struggle with a bit of depression and some down. I know that because I've been told.
yeah.
And I just want to say, be okay with being an outlier. It's okay. And you don't have to fight against depression. You don't have to fight it. If you're depressed, be depressed. But it won't kill you. It'll pass. And just be who you are. Don't try to meet anybody's expectations. Just be who you are. And you'll figure it out. We only can figure it out for ourselves. Nobody else can figure it out for us. And that's what I love about you, is that you, in spite of what weaknesses or fears or what things you think you have going on, you have made yourself a little bit unpredictable, undefinable. And that's a really good place to be. You are undefinable because people want to define you in a box. Well, what are you, a musician? Are you hip? Are you grunge? Are you a drug addict? Are you an idiot? I mean, are you successful? Are you contributing to society? And none of those things. Those are just words. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody. And you're the only one who can discover who you are. Nobody else will ever discover it for you. You discover it. And when you do, you'll be okay with yourself. But like the Zen say, I really believe this about the Zen gurus, it isn't a path. It isn't something you have to learn. You don't have to read so many books. It's nothing like that. You wake up. And when you wake up, you may not be free of all your issues and problems, but you know you just woke up. And I can go on now because I'm awake. I got a lot to learn, but I'm awake. And the Zen guys are right when they say it just happens. It's not the end of some, and I think I really woke up about 15 years ago.
Really? While you were still in the church?
Yeah. That's why I had to leave the church, because when I woke up, I became something the church didn't want anymore. He's not being who we told him to be.
Yeah.
But it's scary. Now, that's to say I wasn't searching. I was searching. But you get to a point when suddenly you realize everything I've tried isn't it. Drugs isn't it. Music really isn't it. It's fun, but it's not it. It is when you wake up.
Everything that you're saying is, I think a lot of people need to hear, for sure. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. My listeners are really going to like this. How do you come across these questions? Like, what are you reading? What do you read?
Well, I have several guys that I like. I hate to say who they are because, a couple of them are dead. Mm-hmm. They're guys that have died in the last 15, 20 years. Because I'm not really flaunting, read this and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
But everybody has voices that help them. And I've discovered a couple of sort of basically one voice that's really helped me. Susan and I read him a lot because he's fun to read. But he's not the moon. He's just a guy writing words, but he knows that's what he is. He's very careful to say it all the time. And then once you wake up, then everything's okay. You can wake up and see this whole thing's a game.
Yeah.
It's a con. It's all a con. It's a game. Okay, when you know that, then you're free to play the game. Because it's a game. You don't take it so seriously. People that take their game seriously are the people that are dangerous. Hardcore fundamentalist religionists, they take it far too seriously. It's just way too seriously. When you know it's a game, then you can read anybody and enjoy it and say, that was helpful, that wasn't helpful. And you don't worry about it. You just, do what you want because it's a game. You got to know it's a game. You got to know it's a game.
Have you thought about doing your own little podcast? I mean, you don't have to do a guest-based one, obviously, but have you thought about...
Yeah, I have. I just don't know how to do it.
We'll have to talk after this.
I don't have the know-how.
It's a lot easier than you think now.
Yeah,
I'll show you some stuff.
I got on that thing you
Anchor.
I got on that. I got
Shout
that
out
the app. I got the app, but still loading up an intro and the music and all that.
It's so much simpler than that now too. With what you're saying, you don't even need all that. You don't need anything fancy.
You got it, man.
Yeah.
You don't need all that.
Yeah,
None of us need all
anything
that.
fancy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, all you need is a good microphone that can just plug into your phone, record it, and post it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is going to be I'm really curious to see what other people say about this, but my mind is running in circles right now. I don't know where to start. Yeah, I don't know where to start.
Well, start here. You're okay.
Yeah.
Just start there. You're okay. And if you don't know the Tao, that means you really know it. You don't know you know it, but you do. If you don't know the real answer, great. You're right on the edge of it. You're right there.
When do you want to be done with your books?
Oh, I don't know. Now that I'm not working anymore as a camp host, and I can just write now.
You met some cool people doing your little camp? Because what you do is you're going to different campsites and just living there in your RV, right?
Well, we just did one set of 2 campsites that we lived between them.
Okay.
And we took care of those 2 campsites for 5 months, which means we checked in the campers, took their money, told them not to scream and yell in the middle of the night and wake everybody up. I just tell them, look, I'm an old guy. Don't wake me up tonight, okay? I'm nice, but don't wake me up. I was just playing with them.
Yeah.
It was all wonderful. Yeah, we met some great people. You remember when we were in the Quadrangle? The church? You don't. That's too far back. Okay.
Was that when it was in the theater?
No, that was before that. The Quadrangle was downtown Phoenix, downtown Salinas. Sorry, downtown Salinas. We were in the Quadrangle. Anyway, so we just met some interesting people.
I was real young.
Yeah, you were real young. But we met people that go clear back there that knew people we knew from Salinas. And
really?
Yeah. It was really
wow.
interesting. It was fun. So, yeah, you just start with you're okay. And if you get depressed, don't act like it's something on you that you've got to battle. You can just sit there and say, I'm depressed. That's me right now. Me's depressed. And it'll pass. Everything passes. Everything goes by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It'll pass. It's okay if you're depressed. Don't be ashamed of being depressed. Don't be ashamed of being confused. Don't be ashamed of not knowing what you're doing. Nobody else knows what they're doing either. They just don't want to admit it. Just admit it, and then you're okay.
I think I'm going to be looking at life very differently now.
Extremely.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah. Wow.
And like everything I do in music and podcasting and my day-to-day. And
Okay, so you realize it's a game.
yeah,
And so therefore, because you realize that, you can go all in and really enjoy it because you know it's a game. If something goes wrong with your music, it won't kill you. It was a game. It's a game you chose to play. It's a good game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're okay with it without it. So enjoy it. And if you don't have any more, you don't need it anymore. Do the next thing. As long as you know it's a game. And that's a whole other talk is about impermanence and things that don't last and things like that. It's all part of the same message.
You still doing your YouTube channel?
Well, a little bit. I haven't been. I mean, I've still got it, but I wasn't happy with it. because I thought I sounded a little too argumentative, and I didn't want to sound that way. I didn't want to be that way. I wasn't that way, so I stopped doing it. I just wanted to be non-attached, open and free.
Yeah.
But it's coming around. It's coming around.
Nice.
It's coming around. Yeah. So I want to before we're done, I just want to say to you that, and I say this because I mean it, that you guys doing this, you and Austin and Justin,
Yeah.
and Justin, but you specifically as the one on the mic, not everybody can do this. When I first heard this podcast, and in fact, when I first saw you on stage with Rundown Roommates, I thought, yeah, he's got something. You just got to let it be. Be that. Just be that. Be what you're doing, because you do it so well, Tyler. It's a gift.
Get a lot of it from you.
Well, I don't know about that, but when I hear you interviewing people, and here's people that, I say this carefully, but not everybody would do it, because you're interviewing people who are actually wanting their name brand to rise even above yours.
Yeah.
I mean, your competitors in a way, but you don't do that. You say, come on, tell me, what's going on with your band? What are you doing? It's really, really good.
Well, just like what you said, right? Like, once you realize that, like, it's not, what were you saying? Like, we're all here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like we're different groups or
That's
things.
right.
We're all one, right?
That's right.
And I think that goes really far, especially in punk rock. We are very,
Yes.
very much camaraderie,
Yes, you get that on your podcast.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to build the podcast off of, because when the pandemic happened, guys that we would see every weekend on stage, or any of those people,
Right.
we didn't see them anymore, and I think a lot of people were in a lonely space. So
Yeah.
I wanted to my favorite thing about shows is the conversations we have in the parking lot before.
Right.
Those are my
Right.
favorite things about shows, and I get to talk to
Right.
musicians on tour, musicians I've known forever, talk about their gear, talk about what they have planned, and it's always just so exciting.
Yeah.
And I miss that the most, because it was this awesome pregame before you go play a show for 30, 40 minutes, get off stage, and then your comrades are there too to congratulate you, or
Right.
even if you did shitty, even
Yeah.
if you broke a string and
Right.
played like absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
There is this awesome community behind it, and I think my community in particular, is seeing things almost the same way that you saw things, right? Or at least a few of them. But you have I don't know, Buddhist, Christians, satanic, whatever. But we're all here, and we are all just the same,
Saying that, it reminds me that your podcast during the pandemic had a healing element to it, to the people you had on. Because here are people, like you're saying, they haven't been able to play. There's no place to play. And here they're being invited to talk about what's going on with music with you. Talk about this. And it brings it back to life. Like, even without the opportunity to play, I'm still doing this. It's still me. And that's so important. It's so important. That proves that you don't have to have a stage for it to be real inside of you.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a stage, it's still real inside of you. It's still who you are.
Yeah.
At least part of who you are. So,
I think that's a good way to end.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for having
Gramps.
me. Oh,
seriously, probably gonna be our best podcast ever. I'm not even gonna lie. I think a lot of people are really gonna enjoy this. I know I did. I think all of us really have. I'm looking at everything differently. It's crazy. All I can say is I think I need a beer.
Okay. Final word.
Yeah.
So all three of you guys and everybody listening, you're okay.
Thank you, everyone, for checking out this episode of The Rundown with Silva. My name is Tyler Silva. This is my Gramps, Bradley Willson. You're okay. We will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah, the rundown.